Hey guys, this is Merlini of MerliniDota, and I'm going to present you the Hand of Midas Craze, Merlini's Mailbag episode 25, my weekly show that airs at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time every Tuesday. So what is this Hand of Midas Craze? This week's question asks, "Sup Merlini, I have been noticing a lot of Midas builds on heroes that don't usually build it. For example, I saw a few Crystal Maidens in the pro scene building it. In addition, I even saw you build a Hand of Midas on Puck at one of the tournaments with Purge. Can you explain why you and a few CMs build this item?" Special thanks to Kyle from Canada and System Error from Germany for this week's questions. This one was actually from Kyle, and System Error actually had a very similar one. So this is on a lot of people's minds, especially this week. So what is this item in question? For the newer players out there, I'm just going to give a brief overview of the item. Here's the icon. It's a hand made of gold. Components: Gloves of Haste, 500 gold, and the recipe, 1400 gold, which is 1900 gold for the Hand of Midas. Passive effect, 30 attack speed, which is not that great if you're just looking for attack speed. By comparison, Hyperstone gives 55 attack speed at 2100 gold, and Gloves of Haste gives 15 attack speed for 500 gold, and you can buy two of those for 1000 and get the same amount of attack speed. And there's power treads too, so there's a lot of other ways to get attack speed, so this is not why the item is gotten. Instead, it's mostly for the active effect, which is Transmute. What exactly does this do? It gives 2.5x the unit's normal experience bounty instead of the normal experience, and it also gives 190 reliable gold instead of the normal gold that you would get from the unit. So whatever unit you Midas, you get 190 reliable gold, you don't get any other gold, and you also get 2.5 times the unit's normal experience bounty instead of the normal experience. So if you use it on a big creep, you'll get way more experience, but if you use it on a small creep, you will get more gold because the smaller units give less gold usually. So it's on a 100-second cooldown, and you cannot transmute Ancients or Necronomicon units, and I'm sure there's some other ones out there, but usually just normal neutral creeps as well as lane creeps and a few summon units here and there, like Forged Spirits. So why the recent craze? On October 26th, just 3 days ago, LGD International upset a huge favorite, Team Invictus Gaming 2-0. The odds were, I think, 84% in favor of Invictus Gaming and 16% LGD International. So we're looking at like 6-1 favorites, which is pretty darn significant. And I actually put my rares on LGD.Int and I lost them. Many of my rares were lost that day. LGD.Int were just looking pretty weak the few weeks before and lost some games that they should not have lost, so I did not have any faith in them. And what's of particular note is that LGD International actually acquired 3 Hand of Midases in their victory, a very unusual pickup. And drawing data from Dota.com, we see the 3 players, X, Freedom, Misery, and Black, picking up Midas. Spectre, not unusual at all, and Black loves his farm. So this was picked up 9.2 minutes. That's nothing strange. But these 2 pickups are very, very unusual. Crystal Maiden and Windrunner also picking them up at 12 minutes and 18 minutes on the Windrunner. And IG, I don't believe, had any Midas on their team, and it was a pretty decisive victory. IG conceding out in, I think, like 38 minutes time. So not only did they beat them 2-0, and not only did they beat them 2-0, they also beat them 2-0 with 3 Hand of Midases and a Hand of Midas CM and a Windrunner, which is pretty much unheard of, except in pubs. So what do I think of the item? It's good for late game security because you just keep accruing 190 gold every 100 seconds. And that is a lot of gold. I think that's pretty obvious. I actually don't think there's a hard upper limit on the acquisition time. I generally don't get it past 18 minutes though, but people are generally like, oh, you shouldn't get it if you can't get it past can't get it before 10 minutes, or only get it if you can get it before 8. And I don't necessarily think of it that way, just because if the opponent's team are really underfarmed and you're underfarmed too and you pick up a Midas, it's all relative, right? You want to be more farmed than their carry, your mid wants to be more farmed than their mid, but if you get like a 20-minute power treads and they get like a 35-minute power treads, that's awesome, right? So it's all relative. So that's why I don't really like to think of it in limits. Gold is primary, the primary reason why you want to get this item. Experience is secondary. The experience is sometimes primary, but most of the times it's secondary. For example, a hero like OD, I think that experience is really important because you get a lot of intel. You really need Essence Aura and Arcane Orb, and the stat growth helps your intelligence, which helps your ultimate. a lot, and your orb and your survivability. So experience is pretty important, but generally it's gold, and then attack speed is tertiary. If you want attack speed, go power treads or armlet or hyperstone or double glows of haste if you really want to. It makes farming and leveling extremely efficient. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's somewhat similar to Boots of Travel in that regard, because you don't actually have to spend time killing creeps. And like a lot of the times when you're farming, you have to like tank creeps. You have to like spend time like last hitting them or kiting them a little bit if you don't want to take any damage. And a lot of times it's just really inefficient comparing to boom, press an item, cha-ching, 190 gold, awesome, instantly, and you get a lot of experience. So if you're like a mid hero, you can just like pop to the small camp Midas and just immediately go back to lane without even missing out on a wave. If you have to right click them down, you'll usually miss out something else with that opportunity cost. Next, which I triple starred, actually 6 starred because there's 3 stars on each side, it gives reliable gold. Reliable gold is really underrated, and people don't really manage their gold that well. If you watch me stream and if you watch some pro players play, they actually like amass a lot of gold. Like for example, they'll amass 3,000 gold before they buy their Yasha because they want that 950 reliable gold, because if they die, then it makes that ultimate orb build up way easier, and they prefer to have a Yasha over an ultimate orb. So it's very, very important that it gives reliable gold. It's an excellent item if gone unpunished. That being said, it is punished heavily by a lot of ganking or pushing pressure immediately post Midas. And I say immediately because if you wait too long, then the Midas effects are going to kick in and they'll have more items than you do, and then you'll be behind. It creates gold and experience on the map that normally wouldn't have been obtained, similar to stacking. So there's 4 creeps that spawn in each lane every 30 seconds. And if you last hit perfectly, there's still only a set amount of gold that you can get, unless you can like transition to neutrals. But just looking at the creeps from the creep wave, there's 4 per lane, 4 in your lane every 30 seconds, so 8 a minute, and it creates golden experience from nowhere. Like you just get 190 gold or 190 minus whatever it would normally give you without you. There's like no other way to like create that gold. At least from normal creeps. And similar to stacking, you just like create more creeps on the map so you can get more experience and get more gold, which is why these tactics are so important at a high level. It also helps kill creeps quickly, which sounds obvious, but it's especially useful for things like Ion Shelled creeps, if you're versus Darkseer as a melee hero, or versus something very difficult to kill like Hellbear Smashers if you're like Lycanthrope or something like that. It's extremely difficult to kill if you have your really low HP wolves, etc., etc. You can also create gold and experience by like killing people too, which is gold that you normally wouldn't have gotten from killing creeps. But I think you guys should get my point. And looking at my match history that I just pulled up today on 10/29/2013, my most recent game 4 days ago, and I got Midas on Crystal Maiden as well as Double Ghost Scepter, and I got Midas on Templar Assassin, slightly unusual, have Midas on Warlock, and I'm pretty sure I got Midas on other heroes too. I probably just sold it. Midas on Broodmother, Midas on Enchantress, these are more standard, but I get Midas a lot, and I got it before this thing, and if you scroll through my Dota buff, you'll see a lot of Midases, and you watch me play, I'm like, maybe I should get a Midas, just because it's so good in unorganized situations. It's so good if the other team doesn't really take advantage of it too, and they often don't. So why do pros like it so much? If both teams relegate to farming, generally the team with more Midases will win. So this is fairly obvious, but it also, because of this, it somewhat pressures the other team to fight often and make mistakes. So it often goes unpunished because the other teams don't want to take that risk. And if they lose a fight when you have Midases and they don't, then you're just going to get even further ahead. It gives reliable gold so that even if you die and they do pressure you and you fight, you don't lose that much gold. And this is especially important for building up to really big items like Sheepstick, like BKB, which all the components are pretty expensive. Even for something like drums, like let's say you have like anywhere from like 200 to like 1500 gold, you can spend 1500 reliable gold, you can spend all that very, very efficiently. If you have 1300 gold or 1200 gold rather, you just buy your drums and Robe of Magi right before you die, don't lose any gold. If you have 1000 gold, you buy your recipe plus your circlet, don't lose any gold. If you have 500 gold, you buy your bracer, don't lose any gold. If you have 600 gold, you buy your gauntlets of strength as well as your Robe of the Magi, don't lose any gold. So that's pretty awesome, right? And if you, it just depends on how much unreliable gold. So you always have to check, and it's another thing you have to think about. But it's very, very useful. It secures other item buildups past the initial mech, blink dagger, or force step. I give these 3 items because these are the items that supports usually get, because we're not really questioning why you get it on carries, because carries need items, so on and so forth. But why does Crystal Maiden, why does Windrunner get it? Because it's what, almost 2,000 gold, mech the 2,300, blink dagger 2,150, force staff around that 2,000 gold mark too. So these items are very close to the valuation of Hand of Midas, and they could get any of these instead. And if you think that any of these will help you win the game, like right on the spot, because they're putting out so much pressure, then you should get these items instead. But if you think that you can delay the game for another like 6-7 minutes until you can get your mech after that, or if you really want another item after mech, you're like, okay, well, we're going to lose the fight in the next few minutes, but I'm going to need more items past my initial blink dagger if we want to win this game. Or I think we can win even if we lose those fights and I get a late blink, and then later we'll just get further and further ahead, then you should get it. It pays for itself in 5 uses. People say 10 uses because 10 uses times 190 gold is 1900, but you can sell the item, right? So you only need 950 gold to compensate for it if you want to sell it. So 5 uses times 190 is 950 gold, but it only takes 4 cooldowns because you can instantly use it for time 1, and then first cooldown you use it twice. So 4 cooldowns, you use it 5 times. So 4 cooldowns, 400 seconds, 6 minutes and 40 seconds, which equates to 950 gold, which equates to half of the item cost of 1900 equals the sell cost. So it pays for itself in 6 minutes, 40 seconds, not considering opportunity cost. People cite 8 minutes, people cite 15 minutes. That is wrong. It actually pays for itself in that. But you do have to consider the opportunity cost of, like, okay, I have a drums, and if I die in a fight because I don't have that 9 strength or that extra move speed, or I don't get a kill because of attack speed, then that's a lot of opportunity cost. Or it's half my BKB and I lose a fight because I don't have BKB when I need it, then you really have to consider that too. But in terms of just pure gold efficiency, it pays for itself in 5 uses. So is this temporary or here to stay? It's only been 3 days since then, and we've seen a lot of teams get it. IG, the team that actually lost to it, started picking up Midas for themselves. And I saw LGD China play versus LGD.Int yesterday, and I think there were like 4 Midases. I've seen 5 Midases. So it is definitely a craze, and it's definitely really popular right now and really hot, but I don't think it's here to stay. I think that people will consider it as another option, as opposed to just getting the blink dagger on the Crystal Maiden, because nothing else usually comes after that, like unless you're owning, which it doesn't really matter if you get items or not. But in a slower paced game, like every time you use your Midas, you can buy Observer Wards, Sentry Wards, 2 smokes, and that's really useful. And eventually you'll be able to get a mech, maybe a 4-step, and I've even seen like people get Scythe of Vices because of the Midas, which is pretty useful. So I think it's just going to be situational. I don't think it's here to stay. We may see like a slightly higher average of Midases in a game, like around 1 to 1.5 instead of whatever it was before. Definitely less than that. But in terms of like people getting 4 to 5 Midases on like heroes that should not be getting Midases in like 30 minutes in, I think that is definitely temporary. People are overrating the item right now. It hasn't actually been touched in quite some time, but a lot of the other changes have kind of bumped it into popularity out of obscurity. For example, neutrals giving less experience now and less gold, it kind of compensates for that. And people like have slightly more gold from like passive income, so people are like, oh man, why don't I just spend a Midas since I'm getting gold quicker? Those are like very minor things. The item itself is pretty stable, I'd say. I don't think it's going to get changed anytime soon. I don't think it's going to get changed in the next upcoming patch, whenever it's going to come along, but I could be wrong. That's a long time in the future, but it's a situational item. Shouldn't get it on every hero, but it is good in a lot of situations. I think I like it more so than other people, and I personally don't want it to get nerfed, which is slightly wishful thinking. But yeah, teams are actually learning how to punish it, though. I think DK punished people who got Midases like really hard yesterday, and I think teams are starting to pick up, hey, if they want to pick up Midas, I'll pick up a mech with my 2,000 gold instead and just 5-man and kill you over and over again, so that the gold difference doesn't really matter, because we killed you and took all your towers and have map control, which is way more important than having 190 gold every 100 seconds. So to answer this question, I think it's temporary, and I hope that explained your question. system error, as well as Kyle. So thanks guys for staying tuned to this episode of the Hand of Midas Craze. And if you like my videos, please subscribe to me at youtube.com/MerliniDota. You can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook /MerliniDota. And I also stream almost every day at twitch.tv/MerliniDota. If you have any further questions, please email me at mailbag@MerliniDota.com if you would like to have a chance to be on my weekly episode. Thanks guys for watching. See you on next week's episode.